Today is Thursday, June 5th, AD 2025. This is the Africa Review in 5, written by Seth Meyers and presented by Yamikani Katunga. The Scandal of the African Church. The scandal of the African Church is that there's not much of an African church to begin with. Most of the 54 countries in Africa claim to be Christian by more than 50% of their inhabitants. That works out to be nearly half of the 1.5 billion Africans on the continent. Using South Africa as a test case, can we estimate the number of Christians in the country? If we estimated there were 50 Solar 5 churches with 200 members each in South Africa, that would be 10,000 members. That's more churches and more members in each church, but just as a thought experiment, let it stand. Now add an estimated 50 assemblies from the Afrikaans Baptist Kerk, with 200 members each, and there's another 10,000. Reach in South Africa lists 137 churches. At 200 members each, that's about 25,000. Could we estimate 200 independent Baptist and Bible churches with 200 members each at a total of 40,000? For other small denominations, let's add 200 more assemblies with 200 truly converted members each. Let's assume that all 37,000 members of the 537 Baptist Union churches, as well as an extra 13,000 visitors, are both true churches and true converts, making 50,000. Then let's assume there are more than 50 genuine believers in each of the 1,858 Dutch Reformed assemblies, which includes all three NGK, NHK, and GK, for a total of 100,000. Can we imagine that there are about 500 assemblies of charismatic and non-denominational churches that hold to the biblical gospel and also have a biblical membership of 200 each? That's another 100,000. If you're still tracking and you look back over the math, the members in this greatly exaggerated example equal less than 600,000, not even 1% of South Africa's population of 64 million. And I intentionally made the numbers larger than the evidence. Can any South African believer imagine that all 3,532 churches listed above are biblical, gospel-preaching churches? No, you say. Many of those churches don't preach biblically. They've denied the law of Christ openly, even on their websites. Some even celebrate false doctrine and perversion. The number of biblical churches should make us think that the total number of Christians is a mere sliver. But perhaps true Christians are in bad churches or don't go to any church. Is there evidence that within false and weak churches, there are such large numbers of members and visitors who are denying themselves daily, taking up their crosses and following the Sermon on the Mount? Zambia has 22 million. Would the numbers look much better? If all the members and visitors that Wikipedia lists for all groups of Baptists in Zambia were truly converted and doubled, it would make less than 3% of the population. And Zambia and South Africa seem to have the highest number of solid biblical churches in Africa. With the number of churches and members in these countries, do we have evidence to think that there's even a significant minority of true Christianity? Civil society functions well when it rightly assumes that people are innocent until proven guilty. In Christian theology, however, it ought to be the reverse. We're required to approach men with a guilty until proven innocent attitude. No pastor should call a man a spiritual brother or a child of God or a sheep of the Good Shepherd without evidence, since that man was born in sin, Psalm 51:5, lost, Isaiah 53:6, condemned, John 3:18, filled with hatred toward Jesus, John 7:7, as a child of Satan, John 8:44, dead in his sins, Ephesians 2:1. Don't we require at least a public profession of faith before baptizing someone as a follower of Jesus? Understandably, at this point, some will have objections. Firstly, some will feel offended or attacked by such negative conclusions. If you feel offended, you must ask why. Do you agree that we need evidence before counting someone as a Christian? Are there a significant number of biblical churches that weren't listed? Are you secretly proud of your culture and heritage so that you actually find vain glory in assuming better things about your people than you have biblical reason for? What good will it do to think well of the millions who speak your language only to see vast numbers of them turned into hell while you were not out of breath pursuing their souls. Secondly, some will argue that we must keep our focus on the unreached in the world, like North Africa's Islamic millions, not the reached areas in the South. May God send you, my brother, to the Islamic North. But that doesn't change the fact that the South has very few Christians and churches. Just because the North is drier doesn't mean the South is lush and blooming. There are degrees, and the South, though having more access than the North, is still largely unconverted. This is a terrible scenario. Why have I taken time to put our minds to these discouraging matters? It's so that pastors will mention this in their sermons, so that churches will have prayer meetings specifically for evangelism and missions. This article is an exercise in lifting up your eyes and looking on the fields. The greatest news story in Africa is that she is overwhelmingly lost. And that's it for the Africa Review in 5 on this Thursday, June 5th, in the year of our Lord 2025. Comment with your thoughts on the state of Christianity in Africa, and don't forget to subscribe to the Missionary Minds podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. I'm Amikani Katunga. Be not weary in well doing.